Hi, and welcome back to Financial Accounting 1. Today we're going to work on posting from a general journal to a general ledger. I'm going to be switching between this screen that you see, the general journal, and the general ledger. So the general ledger is more like what you would use for your checkbook. There's a place for a date, there's a place for a description, but we don't put a description in often. There's a place for a posting reference. The posting reference will refer to the journal page that you're posting from. So when I switch back to the journal, you can see that this is journal page 1. And then we'll switch back to the ledger, we would put J1 right there for journal page. And then you can see we have a debit and a credit and a balance. So we'll record whether it's a debit or a credit and then the balance. The important thing here is to understand whether the account has a normal debit or a normal credit balance. This account is going to be cash. To set up your ledger accounts, you'll type in the name of the account, cash, and then you'll come over here and you'll put in the account number. Cash we're going to use as 101. The general ledger goes in order, so you'll start with asset accounts like cash and accounts receivable, which you can see down here I've already done for you. And then if you continue to scroll down, you go to liability accounts. You can see that I've set up accounts payable for you. And then after your liability accounts, you would go to your capital account, your equity accounts, which will start with a 3. And then you would go to your revenue accounts. You can see that I have fees income here and they would start with a 4. Finally, you would have expense accounts, but I do not plan to demo any of those today, so we'll just concentrate on these few accounts. So cash has a normal debit balance, so if I debited cash for $100, then my new balance of cash would be $100. If I then credited cash for $10, my new balance in cash would be $90. And then if I had more cash come in, let's say another $100, it would increase the balance of cash to $290. So our debits are adding and our credits are subtracting. And that's working that way because it's an asset account that has a normal debit balance. If we came down to a liability account, it would work opposite of that. Well, let's get started and try actually journalizing some transactions. We'll go back to the journal. I have transactions set up here for you. I did a few, and we will post them to the ledger. So the first one is cash and Smith Capital. It says owner investment. The owner invested $20,000 into its business. So what we will do is we will first say, okay, $20,000 debit to cash. I'll flip over to my ledger, and I'll put in the date, July 1st. Oops, not July A, July 1st. And we'll just put 11 in there for 2011. You do not need a description every time in your ledger. Our posting reference is J1 because it's coming from journal page 1. Our debit is going to be $20,000. And our new balance in cash will be $20,000. Very good. So we're going to go back to our journal now. There's going to be a lot of flipping back and forth. And I'm going to put in the posting reference, the account number, which was 101. You always want to do the posting reference after you've actually posted the amount in. If I typed in 101 and then went and did it and was interrupted, if there was a fire bell, if the phone rang, if one of my children came and interrupted me as we were doing our session, anything, I might forget that I didn't post. So I always want to do my posting reference after I've actually put the amount in. That's very important. Some students just want to do this all at the end, and you should not do that. This is because you could get interrupted and forget. It's not that common to actually journalize and post anymore. Usually do it in a computer, but if you're doing it by hand, this is good practice, and we should follow good practices. So next we need to do Smith Capital. That's a $20,000 credit. That should make sense as I go to our ledger because Smith Capital is a normal credit account. So I'll come on down and find my Smith Capital General Ledger. I'm going to put in my date, July 1st, 2011. Again, I don't need a description. My posting reference is J1 because I'm posting from journal page 1. I'm going to put in a credit of $20,000. Make sure that we can see our comma, and I'm going to have a balance of 20,000. And that makes sense. It has a normal credit balance, so I'm going to show a balance of 20,000. Very good. So we'll come back to our journal. We'll put in 301 for our posting reference, and we'll go to our next transaction. We can see here the next thing that happened is we had accounts receivable and fees income. For $500, we perform services on account. So here we're not receiving cash, we're just going to be owed for the services for the amount from our customer. So we'll flip over to the ledger and start with accounts receivable. Scroll up till I found accounts receivable. I'll stick in the date. No description, journal page 1 for my posting reference. What's the normal balance of accounts receivable? Anyone remember the normal balance of accounts receivable? That's right, it's a debit balance, so we'll put 500 there, and we'll put a balance of 500 there. So this chronicles the transaction, this keeps the balance for us. We'll go back to our journal, put in the posting reference of 110, and then we'll go back to fees income. Kind of an account is fees income. Did you say it's a revenue account? If you did, you would be right. Fees income is a revenue account, and it has a normal, are you saying credit balance to your screens? If you are, that is correct. I'm going to put in my posting reference, and I'm going to go have a credit here for $500 to show that we've made money. And I'm going to put our balance in for $500. Go back to my journal and put in 401 for my fees income account. Probably it will take you a while. You'll have a little bit of flipping back and forth, especially trying to remember those numbers. It may even make sense for you to tear those pages out of your workbook, or if you're doing them on the screen, to split the screen. Okay, I'm going to come down here to the next transaction. We purchased equipment. We didn't pay for it in cash. We used accounts payable. We're going to owe them later. So let's go ahead and find equipment. So we come over to our ledger where we found equipment. I'm going to record the date. You can see even as we're going through together that posting can be monotonous. Not everybody enjoys posting, although some people find the rhythm of it very relaxing. So we purchased equipment for $10,000. Equipment is an asset, so we're going to record it on the debit side because equipment has a normal debit balance. Also, we debit it in the journal. Go back to the journal, see it's a debit here in our journal. So that's what we're going to do here in the ledger. You don't even need to know the balance. You just do the same thing that you do in the journal when you record the debit or credit in the ledger. And that should make sense, though, that it has a normal debit balance. We're getting more equipment. We didn't pay for this in cash. So let's go back to our journal and put in our posting reference. And say we didn't pay for it for cash. We used accounts payable. So we're going to find accounts payable in the ledger. And I'll scroll down, or scroll. Oh, where did my accounts payable seems to be missing. Hold on one second. There's accounts payable. We are able to find it. Let me put in the date of July 1st, 2011. No description. Posting reference is going to be J1. And it was a credit on the journal, so we're going to credit it here, which should make sense to you because accounts payable has a normal credit balance, and our balance over here will be $10,000. So we'll come back to the journal. I'm going to put in our posting reference of 201. And we have two more transactions that we're going to put in the journal. And this is where it should get interesting because we're going to be dealing with the balance portion. We're going to see how that's changing as we put in transactions. So we have cash here. We have a debit to cash for $250. We receive cash from a charge account customer. So we'll go back to our cash account. Find cash. I would put in our date. And our posting reference, still J1, still on that page. And we receive cash. So we received $250. It's a debit. So we're going to increase our cash account by $250. So our new balance of cash will be $20,250. This number plus this number going to come over here and equal $20,250. So let's go back and put in our 101 for our posting reference. And now we need to record the $250 under accounts receivable. Here we're crediting accounts receivable. We're in the credit column. So we're going to go to the ledger, find accounts receivable, and again we are going to go ahead and put the posting reference of J1 for the page number. But instead of debiting accounts receivable, we are going to credit accounts receivable because we were crediting accounts receivable in the journal. So now if we look, accounts receivable, debits have a normal debit, or accounts receivable have a normal debit balance or a plus. And the credits for accounts receivable are negative. You can see me on the screen putting the plus and negative. If I were a student, I would make sure that I put in pluses and minuses there when I'm working, just to remind me until I really know it for sure. So when you're going through your worksheets, you can just put a little plus or a minus on there so that you understand what is happening when you're going over here to do your balance. So since credits are negative, they're a subtraction sign, you're going to subtract the 250 from the 500. So my new balance is going to be 250 because 500 minus 250 is going to give me a new balance of $250. So I'm going to go back to my journal. I'm going to put in 110 for my account number. I'm going to finish up with our last transaction. Here we have accounts payable, a debit for $150, and cash, a credit for $150. So we're making payment on the debt for equipment. So we're not going to include equipment because there's nothing really to do with equipment. It has to do with paying off our debt. So we'll go back to the ledger. We'll take a look at accounts payable. Now remember that accounts payable, debits are a subtract. They're a negative. And credits are positive. Accounts payable has a normal credit balance. So if I were doing this on the board with you, I would do this, and if you're doing it in class, I would do that as well. So we have a debit of $150. Going to put our posting reference of J1 there before I forget. And then we have to come and find the new balance of cash. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put in a function. I'm going to say it equals the balance less my debit of $150, and I get $9,850. So I can actually put a function in there so I don't have to do the math, which is nice in Excel. But I'm simply subtracting because debits are negative for accounts payable. And I'm finding the new balance. So now instead of owing $10,000 for this equipment, I only owe $9,850. I'm going to go back to my journal. I'm going to put in 201 by accounts payable as my posting reference. And then I'm going to come to cash. I have a $150 credit to cash. Going to my ledger, scrolling to find my cash account. I'm going to put in my posting reference of J1. And then we all know what the normal balance for cash is, right? It is a debit. That's correct. So plus for the debit and minus for the credit. Going to put it in there so you remember. This time I'm crediting cash for $150. So you'll see that I'm going to actually subtract $150 from my $20,250. And I'm getting $20,100. $20,100. The value of my cash went down because I've paid it out. So that should make sense. I hope that we'll go back and put in our posting reference so we don't forget. Going back to our posting reference so we don't forget here. Going to cash 101. And I hope that this has helped you to understand how to use the posting reference column and how to use the balance column in the ledger, and that you have some understanding. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. You can send me an email or you can call me. Thank you so much, and I hope you've enjoyed this screencast.